Okay, now let's kick off. There we go. Okay, let's back up a bit. Wonderful. So yeah, so we're going to be introducing DMT and DBT. We're going to look at how mindfulness and focusing interlap and also set the foundation for emotional awareness. We're going to be exploring opposite action, emotions, the skill of opposite action, which is a DBT skill, via movement sequencing, DMT principle, as the road towards empowerment. We're going to look at the skill, the DBT skills of half smile and tip skills as polyvagal informed strategies. So this is something that I'm just proposing. We're going to take a look at that. And then we're going to look at how communicating validation can be done non-verbally via empathic attunement. Okay. So this is just a taste, right, of how these modalities can come together. So remember, type in your questions in the chat at any time. We'll get to those later. So what is dance movement therapy? For those of you who are dance therapists, right, you already know. Using here the definition by the ADTA, dance movement therapy is the psychotherapeutic use of movement to promote emotional, social, cognitive, and physical integration of the individual. Movement is the basis for assessment and intervention. Okay, so the movement itself is how we do therapy, right? How we assess and provide interventions. So we're going to be looking at these specific skills. Of course, the DMT itself is a whole field, right? It's not just a modality, but it is a field. But we're going to hone in on just a few of these skills: focusing, movement sequencing, polyvagal informed DMT, and empathic attunement. Okay. What is focusing? So focusing is a body-oriented process of self-awareness and emotional healing. It's as simple as noticing how you feel and then having a conversation with yourself. So it very much is about having a conversation with the body. It's very much focused on bringing awareness to body sensations as the initial point of awareness, that interoception, right? Bringing awareness into your digestive system, your heartbeat, your breath, tension in the muscles, different bodies, right? Body parts. And from there, seeing how the body sensations actually have a link to emotions, associations, memories, imagery, sounds, etc. And then making meaning out of that and realizing that the body has actually a lot to say, a lot of information to give us. Movement sequencing. This is about allowing movement to sequence out. A lot of times we hold back movement, right? We live in a society where stillness is preferred. Holding yourself still is almost a sign of respect, right? When we're in a group setting, for example. So movement sequencing is about helping a movement expression to evolve into a more complete movement statement, thus enhancing an individual's identification, how you identify, owning your movement, and commitment to their own personal expressions and communications. So we're not going to go too deep into it, but for example, Christine Caldwell talks about the moving cycle. There's a cycle in which we come into movement and bodyfulness. And one of the stages is owning, where we actually, through the experience, direct and immediate experience of movement, we come to feel our emotions and own them. Okay. And then polyvagal informed DMT. This is a whole other intensive, right? So we're just gonna dip the toe in very slightly today. This is Amber Gray, who practices polyvagal informed DMT, and that is very much where her focus is. And this is her quote. So Polyvagal informed DMT is a humanitarian approach based on the universality of our physiology to working with dance, movement, and rhythm that is helpful for children and adults, as well as individual and group psychotherapy work. The core of this work is breath, sound, and movement as a direct access to regulate the nervous system following traumatic exposure. Okay. Take a breath with that one. Yeah. Okay. And then empathic attunement is a kinesthetic and emotional sensing. So, sensing one's own rhythm, affect, and experience by putting yourself in someone else's shoes, right? So by mirroring someone's movement, right? By taking on someone's movement expression, you are directly accessing your own body system and allowing that to be the way in which you connect to the other person. So it's metaphorically being in their skin, going beyond empathy to create a two-person experience of unbroken feeling, um, connectedness by providing a reciprocal affect and or resonating response. So we're going to practice a little bit of that today. Just that connection that you have when you dance with someone, when you move with someone, when you are in conversation with someone, the body is there too, right? So we'll dive into that a little bit more later. Just another reminder, type in your questions as we go along. And then let's take a look at DBT, right? So we have Marsha Linehan here, who is the developer of DBT. And so it is a cognitive behavioral treatment developed by Marsha Linehan, originally as a treatment for chronically suicidal individuals, and first validated with suicidal women who met the criteria for BPD, borderline personality disorder. And those of us who know about DBT and have studied DBT know that Marsha herself had borderline personality disorder. And so it's really a story of her finding her own way and sharing this gift of DBT with others. But DBT can also be used not just with people who experience borderline personality disorder, but as well as mood disorders, anxiety disorders. I'll just speak personally. I think that DBT is very much a blueprint of life. As many times as I have cycled through the different modules, there's always more to learn. There's always more to excavate and integrate into daily life. So yeah, that's my spiel on that. All right. So although it shares some elements with psychodynamic, client-centered, gestalt, paradoxical, and strategic approaches to therapy, it is the application of behavioral science, mindfulness, and dialectical philosophy that are its identifying features. Okay, so mindfulness is very much a part of DBT. It is one of the modules which is interwoven into the rest. Okay. So what is the dialectical perspective, right? So a dialectical perspective holds that one can't make sense of the parts without considering the whole. That the nature of reality is holistic, even if it appears that one can talk meaningfully about one element or part independently. So there are parts that make up the whole, right? And when we look at dance movement therapy, you can see this perspective interwoven into the foundational principle of mind-body connection, right? Mind, body, and emotions. It's a holistic view. It's a holistic view. Yes, we can look at the body, and there's a very much emphasis in the body, sometimes even a bias towards the body. But the foundational principle of dance movement therapy is that it's an interconnected system, mind-body system. So we don't leave the body behind, and we recognize that it all links together. Okay, so that is one thing that these two approaches have in common. Some basic principles of DBT is that it is very much a skills training perspective. And then each of the modules builds on the previous module, right? Um, the skill of validation, which we're going to be looking at today, and the dialectical perspective, which I just mentioned. So what are these modules, right? So these are the 4 modules. We have mindfulness, right? Which is very much about present moment awareness, being non-judgmentally aware of this moment, right here and now. We have emotion regulation, which is about approaching emotions non-judgmentally, realizing that we have emotions and how to empower ourselves to go with the wave, ride the wave of emotions. What can we do to actually decrease the intensity of emotions when they overcome us, right? Distress tolerance is about when we're on that high end of the scale, when we are experiencing a high level of distress. And it's really about like, how do we just keep our head above water, right? We don't necessarily have to do anything, but we just need to tolerate it until it comes down into a more manageable level of intensity. Okay. And then interpersonal effectiveness, which is about relationship, relating to other. Okay. All right. Let's pause here. So make sure to write any questions that you have. We will be going back into the group in a little bit. All right. So here's a basic foundational principle of DBT, which is that we have an emotional mind, we have a rational mind, and maybe we have an affinity towards one or the other, but the idea is that we come into balance between the two. And when we come into balance between the two, when we consider our logic as well as our emotional experience and recognize that each of these aspects are valid, then when we integrate them together, we get wise mind. Okay. This is a DBT perspective. So I'm offering, when we weave in DMT or embodied, just embodiment overall, that we have emotions, we have cognition, thoughts, rationale, logic, and then we have body. And that actually the integration of these 3 aspects gives us wisdom. All right, so if you notice, I've removed mind from there, right? And so the idea being that mind is not only, related to thoughts, right? But that we have mind all over our bodies, right? Mind is not something that is physical, right? We know that, right? So, so I removed it, and we're just kind of simplified this integration here. Okay. All right. So we're going to be walking through this. This is our map for today, right? We're going to be moving through the 4 DBT modules and 4 DMT skills. On the left side, you have the moving cycle, but we're not going to dive into that today because that would be too much, right? But yeah, just you can take some notes or just hold that. Okay. So first off, we're going to be looking at building awareness through mindfulness and focusing. Okay. So let's actually shift back into the gallery view. Hello. So let's actually practice a little bit here. Yeah, so I invite you to practice if it feels right for you. We're just going to walk you through some focusing technique. And just I invite you to be curious and open. So let's just start by, pausing whatever it is that you might be doing, if that feels right for you, getting into a comfortable posture. Maybe start stretching the body if you need to. Just start bringing the awareness in towards yourself, towards your body. Closing the eyes if that feels right for you. If not, that's okay. I'm going to close my eyes. And then just getting a general sense of your body from head to toe. And then just seeing if there's any part of the body that is sort of standing out more than the rest of the body. Maybe a certain sensation, temperature, maybe it's a certain feeling of tension, whatever it might be. Just trusting that. And maybe there isn't one particular part of the body, and that's okay too. It's all right. And then just bringing your awareness, honing in a little, zooming in to any particular sensation that stands out. And if there is a specific part of the body or sensation, I invite you to just internally say hello. Just say hello, hi, I see you, I feel you. And then just see if anything shifts. Or just notice what you notice. And then just see if you can describe for yourself in your own mind what you're experiencing. Can you put some words to it? Maybe it's just one word or phrase. Maybe it's no words, and that's okay too. And then if you do have a particular body part or sensation, just see if that reminds you of anything, if there's an association that comes up with that you're observing. It could be an emotion, a visual, even a smell or sound, anything at all. Just see if anything comes up. And if nothing comes up, that's okay too. There's nothing wrong with that. And then as we close here, before we finish up, just saying thank you to that part of your body or just your body overall. Thank you. Expressing appreciation. And then just knowing that you can come back here whenever you want. Great. And when you're ready, just blinking the eyes open. Yeah. Maybe looking around, giving yourself a stretch, and doing whatever you need to do to transition back. Great. All right. Cool. And if you want to jot down anything that came to mind, that's okay. If you want to share in the chat, that's awesome too. And I'm just going to jump back into the presentation here. So what we just did is briefly here, was a little quick here, but we practice focusing, which is what's on the right. We practice body awareness, a gentle open questions, saying hello. There was an interested curiosity about the body and the sensations. Maybe you labeled an emotion, maybe you didn't. Acknowledging the message and thanking the body, right? So when we look at the left here, we have mindfulness skills according to DBT. And as you can see, we did practice these skills. We practiced observation. We described, okay? We participated with, you know. We didn't do it just now. Well, I didn't lead you. Maybe you did it intuitively, but um, another thing that focusing can do is that it can set the foundation for building that body awareness um, with clients that may not have that, if they're open to it and if they feel safe enough to explore it. And from there, you can even sequence out movement. So focusing oftentimes can be a kind of like the building block before you go into experiencing movement. For example, if I really focused on a sensation in my shoulder, um, it might have led to wanting to roll that shoulder out, wanting to sequence that movement out. So from a DMT perspective, focusing can really open the door towards movement with some clients. There's also that non-judgmental approach in focusing. It's an interested curiosity, right? We're not judging the sensation. We're not even judging if no sensation comes up. If some clients might be like, I don't really feel anything, and that's okay too, right? So having that non-judgmental approach, focusing on one thing at a time, that is possible as well, right? As we build it with our awareness of sensations and the body, and then effectively. So, um, how do we do this in a way that is authentic for ourselves? What's effective for me? Okay, so there is quite an overlap between mindfulness and focusing here. And also, the other thing that they have in common is that it's really like um, the first steps you take. Um, it's a foundational setting. As we move through, you'll see that mindfulness is interwoven within the rest of the modalities. And as I work with clients, focusing becomes something that we come back to as we go along, right? So, okay. Yeah, so there we go. Okay, so I did write down the things. So foundational, these are the things that they share, right? It's a foundational awareness of self, non-judgmental and compassionate. It increases interoception as well as exteroception. So with mindfulness, it's not only based in the body, but you can have mindfulness of the five senses, mindfulness of what is around you, as well. So there is that aspect as well, which is not the focus in focusing, right? So and then it opens the door to emotional awareness, right? Being able to be aware of what's going on either within you or in the world around you gives you those basic skills to be able to describe your emotions, to feel your emotions, to pause, right, before we react. Okay, wonderful. Okay. And so I'm going to move a little quicker because I'm aware of time. I might have been a little ambitious with the content here, but regardless, I'm going to send this PowerPoint to you guys after, okay? Emotional regulation. So we're going to pair this with movement sequencing today, okay? So yeah, I already had this earlier. Okay, this is just a reminder of what movement sequencing is, okay? We're going to dive right in. So in DBT, emotion regulations, first of all, the principles are that we don't judge emotions. There's no such thing as a good emotion or a bad emotion, right? We have them. And DBT offers like some basic emotions, right? Some primary emotions, some emotions that are pretty universal, right? They're universally understood for the most part. And from there, you can also have, added experiences of emotions. For example, you don't see resentment in this list, or frustration, or disappointment, right? But you do see the more basic emotions: anger, sadness, joy, envy, jealousy, love, right? So we're going to begin by simply honoring whatever the authentic expression of these emotions are for you as an individual, right? And then we will kind of explore what DBT says these action urges are for each of the emotions. So let's transition. I invite you to transition to standing if that feels right for you. If not, you can totally do this from a seated position, and that's totally okay. And so as you transition, right, you might have already become aware of what your emotional state is in the previous exercise that we did, or not, right? But just see as you look at this list, which of these emotions stands out to you, right? See if there's one that resonates with you, okay? Or maybe you have an emotion that you already feel, you know that you are in touch with right now in yourself authentically, and it's not on this list. That's okay too. Okay. So if you're sitting, just start to move your body, pause what you're doing if you're taking notes, and just start to just moving the feet. If you're standing, I'm just taking a walk around the room. You might want to try that if you have the space for it. But just moving the feet, right? Moving the legs, kind of just becoming acquainted with the body this morning, okay? Moving the hips around a little bit. Bringing in the breath, all right? Just gently saying hello to the body with movements. Maybe rolling the shoulders, right? Maybe extending the arms out. Yeah. Maybe gently rolling the head. And maybe taking an inhale, reaching up. And then bringing it down and shaking it out, shaking out the body. Nice. And now that we're a little bit acquainted with the body here, see if there is a movement gesture that for you represents an emotion that you're feeling, or maybe one from the list. And there's no wrong way to do this. Stay in your experience. Just see what your body wants to say through a movement gesture. And maybe you do this movement gesture a few times. Maybe you repeat it. And then maybe you play with the pace. Maybe you do it faster. Or maybe you do it slower. Maybe you try doing it with your whole body. Or maybe you try doing it just with one little part of the body, like the hands or the head. And just allow that movement to sequence, to find its way. Great. And bringing that to a close for now. Okay, and transitioning back. Okay. All right. And let's take a moment to, okay, to come back. And we're going to look at the action urges, right? And just see If you did any of these, for example, my movement was with love, right? And my movement was, I'm going to move back to the gallery view for a moment here. So my movement was something like this, right? Right. And maybe you can, if you feel inclined to share in gallery view, um, what your movement is. I welcome you to do that. Okay. And anybody want to share? Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. Anyone else? Yeah. Nice. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Hmm. Hmm. I see you. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. Thank you. Thank you. Uh-huh. Hmm. Hmm. Okay. Yeah. So I'm gonna throw the slide back on. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you so much. And yeah, you can totally share it in the chat, via description too. That's totally okay. So when we look at when we compare, right? And just see here, these are the action urges, right? For each emotion. So the idea is that each emotion has a natural action urge. And this is generally speaking, right? But just see if you find your emotion up there and if your movement matches the description of the action urge or not. Just see, right? So mine was love, and it was and the words here are engage, share, and connect. So my movement was this. And so the word connect resonates with me with this movement. I would say it matches, maybe even share, maybe even share. Okay. So we start to make a connection between DBT's descriptions of action urges and these movements. So finding what the action urge is first. So how would you apply this with a client? Allowing them to find what their action urge is authentically through movement sequencing for whatever emotion is coming up, right? So we support the client, we empower the client in finding, what does it make you want to do? What is your pattern when it comes to anger, right? Or when it comes to shame, or when it comes to fear, right? And what is that? And what does it look like? And what does it feel like in your body, right? And then from there, we build, okay? We build upon that, the opposite action, which we won't go into today because, again, I could spend an hour just on this, okay? But for example, with anger, the action urge is the first column, and then the opposite action skill, okay, is on the right column. So the action urge might be to move forward with momentum to attack, right? That direct sagittal, right? DMTs, direct sagittal movement forward. Might be that, right? And so we get that in the body, and then opposite action is to gently avoid do something nice, only if authentic, right? So, how does that feel? So, we can work with movement sequencing, trying on the opposite action. And then we can even link these movements together, right? So this is how movement sequencing can support this understanding of emotion regulation DBT skills, right? Not only from a cognitive perspective, but from an experiential body level. Okay, so I'm gonna keep going. Keep typing your questions. If I don't get to all the questions today, I am gonna save the chat and I will reply to your questions via email. Okay. All right. Moving on. Distress tolerance and polyvagal. That in itself can be an intensive, but we're going to practice. Okay. So I'm going to pull in the half smile skill in DBT, which is the distress tolerance skill, meaning distress tolerance is just we are experiencing a high level of distress, right? I mean, I think that COVID is a very good example, right? For just generally in the collective, right? High level of distress, right? Life just isn't the same. We just need to keep our head above water. We just need to tolerate it, right? We need to keep ourselves safe and sane, right? And so one of the skills, along with many others in DBT, is half smile. And I love that there's such a connection here to polyvagal theory and specifically the social engagement system. So the half smile skill is very simple. Let's practice it, right? So again, getting comfy, bringing your awareness to yourself, right? Taking a breath maybe, and then just allowing a nice, soft smile. Right? And noticing as you practice this gentle half smile, just notice if you feel any changes in your emotional state and in your body. Good. You're welcome to keep smiling or not. Totally up to you, right? But the idea here is that when we practice this half smile, we're doing a bottom up approach, right? We're accessing the body from a somatic level to send that message to the nervous system that, hey, we're smiling, things are okay, right? So it kind of, you know, it may or may not have had that effect on you. Just notice, right? But the idea is to kind of calm the nervous system a bit and to just produce a little bit more of that radical acceptance. That distress tolerance is a major part of distress tolerance in DBT. I won't go into, but accepting life as it is, right? Accepting the moment as it is. So that has a connection to the social engagement system, which is basically part of our nervous system that really relies on eye contact, facial expression, tone of voice, right? We seek to feel safe by looking at someone's face, seeing their expression, making sure that we're okay, whether we're conscious of it or not, right? So that is such an important part of polyvagal system, and especially as therapists, being aware that how our body language, our facial expressions, our tone of voice is sending these signals to our clients, right? So that's one link here, and we won't go into this too deeply today, but I just wanted to bring your attention to the green nerves in this figure's face, right? Look at all those nerves that we have in our face. that are there to help us, regulate and are interconnected with the rest of our nervous system. Okay. All right. I could go so much deeper into this, but okay. And the other thing is that tip skills um, are so somatic, right? But they're also um, interwoven in tip skills is this polyvagal informed idea, right? Not idea, but evidence that we move in and out of mobilization, feeling that alertness, right? That sympathetic nervous system activation in the body. If you got up, you felt that activation, that mobilization. And then when we practice the half smile, for example, and the focusing, it's more of um, an immobilization. We're still, we're calm, parasympathetic, right? So each of these skills in tip skills are informed by this, right? I mean, we have the paced breathing that is very calming, right? To support that healthy immobilization, that rest, restore, right? And then we have intense exercise in there too to support that healthy mobilization. It's healthy to also to move, to play, to feel active, to feel energized, right? Um, and then we have paired muscle relaxation, which really integrates the two. We have the tension and the release. So interwoven into paired muscle relaxation is that mobilization and immobilization, right? And then with temperature, you can use, this is generally speaking, it really depends on the individual, but for me, I know that cold ice is going to match that activation in my body. Whereas if I'm feeling collapsed, that warmth is going to snuggle, is going to really comfort me and match the rest and restore aspect of my nervous system. So I really think that polyvagal theory really goes well with tip skills and the stress tolerance overall. Um, but yeah, we're going to keep going because we are 9 minutes away from the end here. All right. And then the last part is interpersonal effectiveness and empathic attunement. Okay. So, yeah, I already defined it. So okay. So, what I intended on having us explore today was validation. Okay. And maybe we'll do it a little differently than I had intended, but DBT says that validation, it does not mean that you agree or approve of someone else's behavior, but it is non-judgmental. You're simply accepting someone as they are and their opinion, their experience as they are, even if it is different from your own experience. So we definitely need more validation overall, I would say, in the world. But part of it is also to focus on the inherent worth of the person. Everybody has worth, everybody has value. And to observe, to listen carefully. So there's that mindfulness piece, that bodyfulness piece, right? Listen carefully to what is said with words, expression, and body. Okay. And so empathic attunement, shares a lot of these principles, right? We are connecting on a body level through movement, through that oscillation of awareness, where your attention goes out towards the other person and then back in. What am I seeing in them? What am I feeling in me? What am I seeing in them? What am I feeling in me, right? Um, but let's practice it. Let's actually practice it a little bit here, just a bit. So and it's okay if you don't want to, but I invite you to come back on screen if that feels okay for you. There's so many good questions here. Wonderful. Yeah. 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 Hi, thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And so let's just the four of us here that are on screen, everyone else can just observe, and that's okay. Um, let's take turns sharing a movement and then having, and then everyone else can reflect back that movement and we'll just experience that. Okay, does that sound okay? Yes, yes. Okay, okay. I'll start first. So my movement is going to be, let's see, this. Okay, so I invite you to just try that on, right? And let's just try that. Okay. And as you do this, just noticing, bringing your attention out towards me and then back into towards your body. Right? And just observing what that's like for you. Okay. And then I'm going to pass it on to Audrey. If you would like to share a movement. Yeah. Okay. And if you can pass it on to someone.
Um, Shay?
All right. And we have one more here on screen. So Moshli. Okay. 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 All right. So yeah, just noticing what that's like, right? We're validating someone else's experience by honoring them, right? With our own reflection, with the reflection of what that movement feels like, looks like in our own body. Okay. So, and to weave in that DBT idea, we may not always like other people's movements because guess what? That's their movement, right? That's their movement repertoire. That's their movement expression. But we can still validate, even if it's unfamiliar or not what we're used to, or not how you would do it, right? Um, so there's that piece as well of being completely present with someone else. Okay. Um, all right. So we have 3 minutes. Let me just see if there is anything else. Okay. We did most of these. I'm going to skip over. I did want to tell you guys that I will be offering a course that will go deeper into each of these. And it is an early bird price until next Saturday, which is Halloween here in the States, for those of us who celebrate it. And then I am doing an extra 10% off today only. So what we'll do is we'll just go through the 4 modules and we'll go deeper into each of these things that I presented today. It's going to be 2 days, Saturday and Sunday. It will be recorded, so if anybody who wants to watch it later, you could do that. And so 2 hours each day. The first day, we would go into mindfulness and focusing, as well as emotion regulation and movement sequencing. And then the second day, we would go into distress tolerance, polyvagal theory, and we would finish with um, interpersonal effectiveness. So, yeah, so if anybody is interested in that, let me know. You can shoot me an email later. I can send you the link. But yeah, other than that, thank you. Let me see if I can answer a few questions. I know that we are at time, but I'm totally okay with staying a few minutes, but I understand, I want to respect your time. So if you have to go, that's okay. Yeah, so dates, it is on November, and my goodness, I'm so sorry, November 21st and 22nd, Eastern time. Yay! Good, good, good. So let's see. Are you able to send us those movements and what they mean to our email? Are you talking about Elisa? I think you are talking about the action urges. I'm going to be sending the PowerPoint as well as the recorded, the replay of today. Okay, so you'll have that in the PowerPoint. I think that's what you're referring to. What is the relationship between the sympathetic nervous system and the parenthetic part of the mind to DBT and dance movement? Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what you mean by parenthetic. So maybe that is out of my scope. But yeah. Did somebody want to ask a question verbally? Okay. I heard someone
I
unmute
just wanted to
themselves.
know action urges. I'm just not sure where they come from the movement side or they come from DBT. I've never seen them before.
Yeah. So the action urges come from DBT. Okay. Go
In
ahead.
mov- in movement, the movement side of the action urges.
So the movement side of the action urges, well, DBT explains the action urges, and in the definition of each action urge, there is a somatic level to it already in DBT. I did add a little bit of more of a movement description for each one.
So the
Okay,
movement
does that make
sequencing.
sense?
Well, so the movement sequencing is not the movement description you gave that follows um, the emotion.
The movement sequencing, what do you mean by that?
Well, like maybe a movement that we gave for the emotion is not the movement sequencing part, or it is the movement sequencing part.
That DBT says. That's what
Yeah,
you
but
mean?
we divided it into three. I was just very interested in, maybe um, sort of lunging forward that description. That's
Okay, yeah. So that is that is what, so okay, yeah. So there is what DBT says, right? And there's that the individualized experience. And so that doesn't always match,
right.
right? So DBT does say that the action urge of anger is to attack. The lunging forward, it doesn't, right? But it does say attack physically or verbally. That tends to be the action urge of anger, right? The lunging forward is from my own lens, okay? As a DMT, understand, just what I've observed in myself and others, that, when you attack, you lunge forward. Like, just like, what does a cat do? Or what does a lion do, right? We don't really retreat when we attack. We lunge forward. So that is me. That is that embodied integrative perspective. Yeah. Is
Thank
that
you.
is that what you were asking?
Yeah, I was just having trouble putting it in like the DBT category or the DMT category and the
Yeah.
origin of that language.
Yes. Yes.
Thanks.
Okay. Okay. All right. I can stay for a few more minutes if anyone else. Okay. Let's see. Let's see. Much like Shelley's question earlier, I don't know what Shelley's question is earlier. If you're feeling anger, would you do a dance movement related to anger? Or would you do a dance movement related to an opposite emotion like calm? Yeah. So there's a so opposite action. So this is DBT, right? Opposite action is not an opposite emotion. Okay. So the skill of opposite action, and we will go much deeper into this in the intensive that I'm offering. Um, Opposite action is not saying like, okay, we have an emotion, and first of all, there's nothing wrong with that emotion. It's not good or bad, right? But it is so intense that I would like to reduce that the intensity of that emotion, right? And the other thing that we look at is that emotion justified? Because this is DBT language, right? Like, is there, so we kind of check the facts there. Like, um, it is that emotion something that you need to feel, right? Like, actually allow yourself to feel that emotion. Um, on the other hand, is that is expressing that emotion going to overwhelm you, or going to you know just cause more conflict for you? And so that whole thing right there, there is a whole it's controversial, because do we base it on the individual experience and the individual's sense of what is safe for them, which is a more trauma informed perspective? Or do we say, you know there is this theory that we want to impose on someone? So that's up to you. But the idea is that we feel an emotion, we identify if it's justified or not, and then we identify what the action urge is. After we identify what the action urge is, that's where we can find what the opposite action is. Not the opposite emotion, but the opposite action. So with anger, if the action urge, what it makes you want to do, is to attack, then what's the opposite of attacking, right? And DBT offers to gently avoid, right? With fear, the action urge tends to be fight or flight. So again, it could be attack, but fear based, or it could be run away, right? So in the case of avoiding the trigger of fear, first you got to say, is it justified? So if you're scared of something and it's actually a danger, then you should actually run away. So you should actually do that action urge. There's no need to practice the opposite action. But if it's something that is anxiety provoking and there's no actual threat, and it's actually stopping you from living your life, right, as we understand anxiety to be, then the opposite of retreating and running away is actually to move towards. So to move towards that which is causing the fear, right? Which is the basis of exposure therapy, right? Or systematic desensitization, right? So I hope that clarifies a bit the answer to that question, right? So do we dance the actual emotion, or do we do the opposite? Well, that's going to be between you and the client. That's going to be according to what the client wishes to do, first of all, and what they are ready to explore, and how much trust you have with the client. In DMT, dance therapy, we talk a lot about matching that energy first. Meet the client where they're at, right? So if the client is totally pissed off, you're not going to be like, calm down, right? But you're going to get mad with them, right? You're going to match that energy in your body, in your emotions, and your feelings, and you're going to validate that. And then what happens? Why do we match that energy? We match that energy because we know that if we match it first, we create that trust, we create that empathic attunement, that validation, and then we can start to reduce that intensity of that anger, right? So you might want to dance it first. You might want to dance the anger first. I don't know. That's maybe depending on the situation. Okay. All right. Cool. So I see lots of awesome questions here. Um, let me see. I'll do one more. Let me see. Let me see. Um, okay, I answered that one. Okay, okay. Uh, is it okay? Let me do the last one here. Much like Shelley's question earlier, if you do have a feeling that you don't want and you don't know the action urge to your opposite feeling. Okay. And I know you stated earlier that you don't do that. Oh my goodness. Yeah, okay. I think I hit on some of that a little bit just now. So, but I will drop my email in the chat. Please send me questions if you like. And as you can see, this is there's a lot that we can discuss here. Let me see. I spelled it right. Yep. All right. I'm gonna end there. Thank you all so much. It's been so nice to be with you all. Again, if you have any questions, insights, feel free to contact me. And nothing, it was just great to connect with you all. Thank you. Okay. See you guys around. Bye. Oh, it didn't pop up, the email? Okay, I think I put it in the wrong place. Hold on. Good. I'm glad I saw that. Let me see. How do I? Did someone have a question? Do you have a question? Or you just said thank you? Okay, yeah. Everyone in meeting. Here we go.
Susanna,
Yes,
I did have a question.
go for it.
Thank you. The 4-hour class that you mentioned, that is going to be in November, right?
Yes.
Okay. And how would you want us to go through psychologytoday.com, or would you want us to register through Eventbrite?
No, I do have it on Eventbrite, but if you want the discounted price for today, I can send you the link for that. It's going to be a special link.
Okay.
Hold on, because I don't think the Eventbrite, I would say don't go to Eventbrite yet, okay? I am going to send an email anyway with a link, but the one for today, hold on, give me 1 second. What did I do with it? I'll drop it in the chat with the extra 10% off today. Hold on, make sure I get the right one for you.
And I didn't quite understand when you were answering my question, which, by the way, thank you for taking
Yeah,
the answer.
go for it. Mm-hmm.
When you were saying that we want to match the feeling of our clients or the feeling within ourselves, I didn't understand from there, how does someone like move away from the feeling they do not want?
So it's a deep question. There's a lot to it, right? And I don't think there's one answer, right? But with that being said, if there is an emotion, right, that you are experiencing that is the very first thing, and this is integrating DBT and DMT, right? So the very first thing is to realize that there's nothing wrong with that emotion, right? So honoring that emotion as it is, non-judgmentally, okay? The second thing is um, DBT says, ask yourself, is that emotion justified? In other words, is there interweaving that rational mind, right, as DBT says, from a logical, objective point of view, is there like good reason, right? And that's so subjective, for you feeling that emotion. That's the very first step, because oftentimes we deny ourselves to feel that emotion, because of certain beliefs or certain limiting beliefs, right? So we got to kind of check, before we try to move away from that emotion, as you say, first. Okay. With the exception of anger, DBT says, with the exception of anger, because although I don't necessarily always agree, because anger can be a great fuel for change. But DBT says, accept anger, because even if anger is justified, it may not be useful to continue to feel it, right? Because it might cause more reactivity and less understanding, especially in interpersonal, in the relationship. Okay. Now, if the emotion is not justified, meaning you're feeling guilty about something that isn't your fault, for example, right? Then we say, okay, then I'm going to reduce this emotion. I want to reduce this emotion. How do I do that? Which I'm getting to your question now, right? So the first thing is to really understand, what do I do when I feel guilty? What's the action urge, right? And DBT says, well, maybe you overly apologize, maybe you retreat, maybe you isolate. Okay. But not only what DBT says is important, but what does the individual experience, right? So what do you feel when you feel guilty? What's your action urge? What do you do or don't do? Okay, now I know that. So now I know what the opposite, so now I can find my way towards the opposite action, right? Well, DBT gives you the answers. It tells you what the opposite action is. But what I'm proposing is that it's also important not just to follow the handbook, right? But to support yourself or the individual to find their way towards opposite action. So through movement, you might experience, like when I feel guilty, I feel a concave in my chest. My shoulders draw forward and I just feel horrible. Like I just feel like I'm sitting in a hole. Okay. And so I might explore that. I might explore that first. And then how do we move towards the opposite? So for me, the opposite might be, I'm gonna roll my shoulders back a little bit. I don't feel totally ready to expand my chest, but I might start to, and then I notice that maybe it's connected to my sit bones too, and to my spine, and maybe it's connected to my head, and so I start to explore, like, what is the opposite for me? What is that? What is the contrasting movement to this? And maybe for me it might be that. Okay, maybe it might be that. And so then what I can do is even move in between these two movements. Like from here, how do I transition out? How do I transition out? And then some words that I can choose to label this might be closing up, sinking, and opening and ready. Maybe, right? So you see, I'm processing my own individual experience. And when I match that up with DBT, it says the opposite action of guilt is to keep doing whatever makes you feel guilty over and over. So keep going, right? To keep practicing whatever it is, because it's not justified for you to feel guilty. You're not doing anything wrong. And so the idea is that as you continue to practice over time, you feel less and less guilt. So in this little example that I gave, the more that I keep opening up, the less I'll want to sink into myself, right? So it's not that we are getting rid of the emotion. I still feel guilty, but I know it's not justified, and I know that I want to reduce it, so I'm going to continue to do this thing regardless, right? Because I want to overcome this pattern of feeling guilt even when I'm not wrong. Okay? Does that make sense? How is that landing for you?
It does make sense. I just have
Okay.
a lot more follow-up questions, and I'm feeling if I write them out, it's not gonna make as much sense. The
Mhm.
sense if I write them out.
Mhm.
Um, but like it just it was really interesting when you said that we're not really trying to um oh man, I forgot what you said, but it kind of gave me the feeling of like we're not really trying to like solve the the emotion. Like yeah, like we don't want to feel that, but like it's more important just to like explore the new things that come in our body and the new thoughts. And I guess the idea, and correct me if I'm wrong, I guess the idea is almost kind of like like breaking that pattern or like feeling and thoughts just for a moment. Um,
Mhm.
and maybe that break could could turn into some other things like logical, like ex- executive planning of a brain, or maybe that could just turn into just like feeling good what we're about to do in the next moment.
Mhm.
Am I
Yes.
correct on that? Or I wasn't
I
sure where you were going.
I think you're onto something. I think you're onto something. Yes. Yes. It's about regulating emotions, and that there's no one right answer, right? So it's about finding the balance, and that's what dialectical is all about, finding that balance, finding that middle path. And that's going to look completely different from person to person, situation to situation. So you're onto something, breaking a pattern, moving into something different. Yeah.
So is
Right.
embodied DBT, is it like a form of meditation, considering that DBT is like heavily rooted in mindfulness?
Well, I wouldn't say it's a form of meditation. Okay. It's simply what I personally am labeling how these two approaches, DBT and dance therapy, how they overlap, how they can support each other, and how they integrate. Okay, so that's just what I am offering and proposing, right, from my lens. But I wouldn't say it's a form of meditation, although being mindful and being bodyful and being aware is very much the roots, like as you said. So yeah, yeah.
Okay. I'll
I hope
definitely
that helps.
email you, and hopefully my questions in the email make sense.
I
And
love it. Yes.
thank you for posting that second link. I haven't clicked on it yet, but if I do have trouble with it today, I will let you know in the email because I do want to sign up.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. No problem. Send them away. All right. All right. I'm gonna end here. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys.